Looking at a HVAC business in Washington with 800K in EBITDA and about 2.3 million in revenue. And what I want to go through is just how I would look at this from the beginning to try to give folks just a sense on how I look at this stuff. Now, you guys may not be on Biz by Sell and you may hate Biz by Sell, and I get all of that, but I think everybody starts there. So I would look at it and say, hey, look, we've got an established HVAC company. The first thing I look at is, does anybody have a sense on what HVAC margins typically are? You can put in the chat. If you don't know what they are, tell me, is 5% too low? Is 40% too high? James, you nailed it. 15, 20% on an EBITDA add back level is about right. So in my head, I'm already thinking, okay, this should be 15, 20% EBITDA margins. If it's not, this is a bit wonky. So they're saying gross revenue. People typically can get revenue correct. They screw up on cash flow and EBITDA all the time. So this is doing call it 2.4 million. At 20%, I should expect 480 in cash flow. They're saying 790, so $300,000-$400,000 more than what I would expect. That's the first thing. Before I even read a single thing that's in here, I'm already saying, hey, 790 on a business in this industry looks wonky. You guys follow me? And people want to say, oh, add backs. I run my own business. You can only add so much stuff back. So semi-absentee ownership. I'm already saying bullshit. That's like a semi-virgin or a semi-perfect driving record. If they say semi-absentee, it's very likely they're working in the business quite a bit. Not focused on new construction. The way I think about these postings is they're typically about 50% correct. Anybody know why somebody would be marketing that they are not focused on construction? Why is that even a thing? You can pop it in the chat. James, you're right. Even numbers are suspect. Yep, cyclicality. Austin, you nailed it. So what they're saying is, hey, this is a business that is semi-absentee. Like I said, I think that's baloney more than likely. Now focused on new construction, so less cyclical. Now, I'm just going to read through this as I would. This established HVAC business, active for 20 years. That's good. Efficient operational structure. So they're just trying to justify semi-absentee by saying efficient operational structure. I would bet if you lined up 100 operational structures in front of this broker, Mike Lutengard, he wouldn't know an efficient one from an inefficient one. So some things when I look at these postings, I'm saying, would I expect the broker who represents this business to know this thing? I would not expect them to know an efficient operational structure. They're using it to support this semi-absentee. Company has an excellent diverse mix of clients, split nicely between commercial and residential work, not exposed to cyclical tendencies of new construction, majority work is service-based. The company employs an efficient field management system. Again, I wouldn't expect him to know that. There is no concentration of revenue, with the largest client accounting for less than 5%. Why could that be a bad thing?
I presume some kind of high level of customer support required, of operational drag from having too many bits and pieces clients.
That could be one piece. Customer loyalty, Sean, that's another one. Retention, not good yet. Don't do bigger jobs, Austin. I would say that was the biggest one to me. Particularly if you tell me that you do residential and commercial and residential. So residential work typically has some builders in it. And so if you actually loop the builders up into one customer, they should be bigger than 5%. On the commercial side, they're typically even bigger builders and developers. So that plus 5% seems weird. This seems like one of those things that a broker would say just to make everything sound good. And anybody who's been looking at small businesses long enough knows that's just not true. An acquirer is not required to have specific knowledge within the industry as the company has an efficient operational structure. So they repeat efficient operational structure in 6 sentences. So I shouldn't expect a really well-written SIM. Any licensing requirements are contained in the company's employee base other than ownership. What's the issue with this sentence here? Anybody see the BS that's in there? I think I saw Ibrahim jump in. I know he's not shy. Yeah, Neil, you nailed it. So, Sean, you too. So if somebody tells me that I don't need to have specific knowledge, if that's true, cool. Elliot, the QOE dude, can go run this HVAC business. No, what they're saying is there are employees that have the necessary credentials that you need. And so now you are walking into a situation where those employees have leverage over you immediately. So you're in trouble. So let me just go through the rest of this stuff. I typically don't spend a lot of time looking at this stuff. That's not all that helpful. I laugh at these things. And okay, I'm gonna stop there for a second and have a little bit of a chat with you guys. Does anyone in here look at these fundamentally differently? Uh-oh, Austin's got jokes. The risk reminds you of. Yeah. All right. How do you guys look at these? Do you look at these differently? Anybody see something that I did that was sort of markedly different than what they do? So James says, I just fill out the form and look at the SIM. I got it. I mean, that works. I have a SIM I want to go through, but I wanted to start with the listings given I saw a lot of people who were at the beginning of their journey. I still don't understand the customer concentration issue. Neil, that's a great comment. All right, so some of you guys are further along the path than this, but you ain't gonna understand this business off of one paragraph on the internet. And I would also say you are really still not gonna understand it after even a well-written 10 to 50 page SIM. There's just too much information out there. So what you have to get good at is saying, hold on, I'm seeing some notes here. Like you think they could be lying about that? Hey, Neil, I think they could be lying about everything, man. If you know me at all, I'm friendly, but I'm not the most trusting. So, and let me spend a second here. Lying comes in 2 major sort of different sects here. So one is malicious lies meant to deceive you. Others are, a lot of brokers used to be real estate brokers, and they did one business deal and made a whole lot more money, so now they're business brokers. So they're not investment bankers, MBA experts at analyzing businesses. They are salespeople that sell companies. So some things that are in these write-ups and these SIMs, I wouldn't expect a broker to know. So if he sees Blackstone, New York, Blackstone, New Jersey, Blackstone, Philadelphia, he's gonna think those are 3 customers, right? And he may say none of those are 5%. I would say that's a 15% Blackstone customer. So there's a little bit of just understanding what people could potentially understand. So Andrew Hoffman, you're right about key man risk is likely. Ooh, I'm gonna pop on this for a second. So I did a podcast with Will Smith at Acquiring Minds about key man risk, because I think it's largely misunderstood. I think it's tossed around willy-nilly, and I don't think people understand it well. And even when they do understand it, they don't know how to mitigate it. So um, let's go from like burning fire, run, key man risk to like you should be able to handle it, key man risk, to approaching zero key man risk. Because I think this will be helpful for a lot of folks. So kind of like approaching no key man risk is like a private equity deal with a management team, with people you can hire, with job titles that people know, with redundancy. You know, the CFO could probably do the COO's job. The CEO is probably a visionary. So like he doesn't do like paper spreadsheet work. And there's a salesperson that does sales. So that's like approaching no key man risk. Let's talk about 10 out of 10 worst out there, run to the hills risk. If there is a certification you need to run the business and you don't have it, you are bent over day one. Not a little bit, a lot of it. So there's a lot of people on this call. Andrew, I like you. We get along. But if I bought a business with you in it and you had the license and I didn't, I would probably feel your leverage. A CEO that does sales, a general manager who basically runs the whole thing, the classic story of the wife that doesn't really work in the business, but actually she's the glue around everything. Those to me are like the worst of the key man risks. And then I would say where I think SMB owners need to be comfortable is you're not going to have redundancy. You are going to have to get your arms around sales quickly. But so on a level of like run, so this is the greatest ever, when there's a license involved that I don't have as a buyer, I'm stuck from the beginning. So I wanted to answer that because I think people don't understand that key man risk well. And if you want more, you can email me and I'll send you a link to the podcast I did on it. So what's to do next? So I think in this case, if you like the deal, you submit the form. But let me hear from you guys. What percentage of forms that you fill out do you get a response from? Anthony, you're better than most, bro. Sean, you're a boss. Okay, I'm used to 50 to 70. James, that's what I was gonna say. If you like the deal, call the broker. Um, and getting the broker on the phone isn't the only positive thing that comes from that. Most people, even if they say they don't, they listen to voicemails, they just don't respond to them. And most people who are busy have their voicemails translated and sent to their inbox. And a lot of people, if you've called them a lot, which if you want to be in this game, the brokers you love the most, you should be calling a lot. They may have your number in their phone. And so they saw that you called even if they didn't pick up. So you need to do that. What else can you do? So let's say you see the Beyonce of deals and you submit the form, you call, and you don't get a reply back from the broker. What do you do then? I like the call and text, Sean. Send bio and PFS. That's another strong one. Put it out there. So Bob said, maybe I'm clueless on difficulty, but why not just account for hiring a second person? Oh. These are great questions. Personal financial statement, PFS. And why can't you just hire someone? So during the deal process, okay, if you're a full-time searcher, in between the day you jump out as a full-time searcher and the day that you close, you will have some weeks that take 60, 70, 80, 90 hours of your time to get through. Doing all the due diligence, looking through all the documents, going to visit the seller, looking at the industry, talking to equity investors, the whole deal. You're going to be super busy. so busy that you might not have enough energy just to do the things that you're required to do as a self-funded searcher. So now why not just hire somebody else that can do it? Well, A, I'm not sure you get rid of your somebody who can leverage you risk. So again, I've got a bunch of friends on here that I spoke to several times, and I like all of them. But if I had to hire them for that HVAC certification, and they're smart enough to know it, the day after I hire them, they say, "Hey, I don't want 100K, Elliot. I want 300K, and I can't run the business without them." I'm in a lurch. So some of the things that would seemingly be easy solutions for this just don't really work. But I don't want anybody to think any question is a bad question. So I'm going to try to get through all of them. As you can see, I don't have my assistant with me today. So I'm going to do the best I can. So I'm going to hop into another listing, industrial equipment supplier. Let me see. Let me share my screen again. Are you guys able to see my screen? All right, cool. Thank you guys. All right, so SBA pre-approved. Somebody tell me in the chat what SBA pre-approved means. Yep, Jimmy, nothing at all. Edward, exactly. Nothing at all. Please don't ever let a broker push you into a certain price because it's SBA pre-approved or they got a valuation on it. The last SBA valuation I got was from a 24-year-old kid in Minneapolis. Now, maybe he was a deal expert at 24, but I doubt it. So don't read too much into that. So approved industrial equipment supplier. Industrial equipment supplier to me sounds like distributor unless they have value added services. So what kind of margins should I be expecting to see here? Right. Oh, Omer, 1 to 5, chat that 10. Anthony, 25 to 30 is very heavy. And here's how I think about it. Some of the top manufacturing companies manufacturing some of the most complicated products in the nation have 25 to 30% margins. So relative to like taking in raw materials, doing stuff, having a facility, all that kind of stuff, and putting out a high quality product every single time, and being a supplier where you're buying something from somewhere else more than likely and delivering it here, you're going to expect way lower margins. 10%. It's cool, man. Because we have a lot of people here, I'm speaking quickly, but it took a lot of years for me to get to this level of understanding, and I'm still wrong every day. I saw somebody ask for my email. My email is at the bottom of my website, guardianduediligence.com. So just please check it out there. I would write it, but I don't want to hold everybody else up. So they're saying $1.5 million in revenue and $600,000 in cash flow. So at 10%, I'd be expecting 150 grand in cash flow. So I'm already thinking this is hard to believe, but maybe there's more here to the business than I thought. And I haven't read through this. I'm doing it with you guys live. Excellent opportunity. I tend to skip those sentences. Founded in 2000, so it's been around a while. One owner, that's good. Approved supplier to 40 plus Fortune 500 companies. That could be good or bad. Revenue generated from equipment sales, rental, certified training, thermal imaging, ultrasonics, vibration testing. So they put a bunch of fancy words here to make it sound like it's fancy. Many industries, predictive and preventative maintenance, blah, blah, blah. The company has a national presence with sales of approximately 1.5, 1,500,000. Thanks for spelling it out and putting the numbers. So this is another one where I would not expect a well-written sim given how this was written. There's more stuff down here, so I would look at it. This is wild and inaccurate. Competition is mainly due to overseas I mean, this is a global market from day one, folks, so please don't believe that. Growing industry. The reality is a broker's not going to tell you if it's a shrinking industry. So they're probably going to call everything growing. Business is home-based. Interesting. So home-based here has me thinking not remote, but like based in his garage. Or he's got a warehouse on his property, which I've seen a lot of those businesses. So I'm sort of nervous already. So inventory of 50K, does that sound off? Absolutely. The numbers I believe the most, I believe gross revenue within 10% most times. Cash flow, I think, is typically up to 50% off. Asking price, I almost ignore. I don't even look at it. For a business under really 750K of XDE, the maximum bid you're going to get from me is 3 times, maybe 3.5 if it's like close to me or an industry I really know. So I don't really look at asking price because I just think you should just send in the price that you like and be okay winning some and not winning others. So back to your question about inventory, I don't believe the inventory number at all for a couple of reasons. Most small business owners don't keep a good track of inventory. So they might say, I've got 50, right? Or a lot of times small business owners will, instead of buying inventory and putting it in an inventory account on their balance sheet, they'll buy inventory and then they will expense it right away because it helps them with taxes and it's simpler. So there may be a lot more inventory than this. So I don't really believe that. But on balance, I would say, hey, if there's a $1.5 million essentially distribution company that's doing, gosh, what is that? Those margins are crazy, like 40% margins. I'm going to find out about it. I'm going to go check it out. I'm not going to believe it, but I'm going to check it out. So anybody see anything else here that stuck out to them, or anybody else would have looked at this differently? I'd say 10 to 15% generally, Sean. Supplier risk, certainly, that's a big deal. You have to hope that they put something about that in the sim, Andrew. Good question, Patrick. So here's what you know. Over 23 years, they only got to 1.5 million in revenue. So year over year growth, you can imagine it's been a slow slug. So that's the other thing. If you get a sim where they did 1 million last year and 1.5 million this year, and they've only done 1 million in their first 20 years or 22 years of operation, I doubt that. I doubt that. Only 2 employees, relationship based. Yeah, and I think he runs this thing out of his house. You guys may not have seen a business like this, but I went to go look at one years ago, about 45 minutes north of Atlanta. And the guy had like a big house, acre lot, and then he had like a regular garage for his car, and then he had like a second garage where the business was located. So if you wanted to buy the business, you had to either go to the warehouse on your seller's property or spend the extra cash to relocate the inventory. Either one is hard to do at the beginning of an acquisition. Would have viewed seller financing potential as a bonus. Anthony, dude, we've all been there, man. I was way more optimistic when I started looking at stuff, I'm more pessimistic, if you guys figured that out by now. Every seller is open to seller financing. No seller is super incented to tell you that they're very open to seller financing. So I always try to flip the thing. So growing business, would a broker ever tell me the business was slowing down? No. Open to seller financing. Do I believe the brokers when they say the seller is not open to seller financing? I don't believe them. So then that's why I don't listen to that stuff as much. So Jimmy said, I go through a lot of these listings and numbers myself. My biggest challenge question is 95% of these are sourced from tax financials. Obviously, this is where you come in. So here in about the next 5-10 minutes, I'm going to switch over to a confidential information memorandum and a set of financials that I've hopefully redacted completely. And Jimmy, what I say is, it's hard to trust any of these numbers at this phase. So just be careful in total. You're really just saying, based on this one paragraph and 4 metrics, am I interested enough to go do the work of getting the confidential information memorandum? And then based on the confidential information memorandum, you're only trying to figure out, do I like the business enough to go want to craft a letter of intent? So think about it sequentially. Also, uninformed brokers tend to lean more on the taxes than they probably should. When do I go visit the seller? I think it depends. So years ago, very few sellers would accept a letter of intent before you saw them, before you went to go visit them. I think a lot more now are accepting letters of intent before you go see them. So I would be very careful about how much money I spent going to see sellers ahead of when I needed to. I would send a letter of intent in and see if the seller needed to see me before he accepted it, because I'd hate to go see the guy, like the guy, but somebody paid 20% more and me have wasted my money. So I'm going to transition. I put together this sheet of deals to look at. So I looked at 2 of the 5. I will take the restrictions off of this, and then I'm going to put the link to this in the chat. So if any of these deals look good to you guys, have at them. All right, I had a lot more people pop into here since I started. So I'm at about 30, which is amazing. So I want to get another sense. If you just starting out, please put a 1 in the chat, or say I'm just starting out, you can take your audio off. If you have sent 3 to 5 LOIs, please press 2. And if you're further along than that, press 3. All right, so I got a couple more. Okay, boom. Okay. All right, what I'm gonna go into now is a confidential information memorandum. And I didn't have my Adobe Acrobat today because I just got a new computer. So instead, I took a SIM and I put it into Google Docs, and then I redacted it, but some of the graphics didn't come over. And so I'm gonna do the best I can to sort of use this as a moment to kind of go through what's in there and what I believe and don't believe. Question for everyone. And you know what, let me do a little something. I've let people be quiet thus far, and I know it's 30 people, but I get a lot of energy from this, and I do better when I get energy. So I'm gonna respond better to those that take off the audio and tell me something. I'm gonna spend less time in the chat. So how much time do you guys spend looking at a confidential information memorandum?
For me, it's about 3 minutes.
I like that.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on how well it's put together, but I would say probably 5 minutes, 5 to 10 minutes.
Sure.
Long enough to recalculate EBITDA and put no multiple on an IOI, one-page IOI to get initial seller feedback.
Okay. All right, that's cool. So let's hop into one. And wait, am I sharing my screen? Are you guys able to see my screen? I think I was.
Not yet.
All right, let me go back. All right. So I told you some of the graphics didn't come over, but let's just let me talk you through how I look at these things. All the client approval stuff, blah, blah, blah. Our process. So just for to let you guys know, I never pay attention to their process. I use the confidential information memorandum to decide if I want to send a letter of intent, and then I send my letter of intent. You guys should have templatized enough letters of intent that it doesn't take you too long to, draft one for a particular opportunity. Even if a broker yells at you, they're never going to really be upset that you sent them an offer for a business that they're selling. All right, so this is one of the challenges of what I did. So financial overview, created June 2012, e-commerce service-based business. So this was a online content business. So they created content for marketers, brands, the industry's huge. Company is hugely profitable with trailing 12-month SDE of $444,000, representing a 52 net profit margin. Who believes that?
Not me. That's way too high on e-commerce specifically.
Anybody else?
It made me think the owner is like working 60 hours, just doing everything.
Yeah. And the way I think about margins, guys, is like, if I'm a distributor and I say, hey, Patrick, send me some widgets. And I say, hey, James, I'm gonna deliver these widgets, high quality, excellent service widgets. I don't think you're gonna pay me more than 10% more than you would have paid Patrick to go get the widget somewhere weird. So those are distribution businesses. Manufacturing businesses are 15 to 23% margins. And all the stuff that's done to produce your automobile, your microwave, your refrigerator, that gets you 25% margin. So to get a margin double that 52, you got to be doing something just out of this world. Now the broker will say, oh no, it's the add backs, and oh no, they run a lean, whatever. I promise you very few brokers know what a lean operation looks like versus a fat operation. So I just want to show you that I would immediately call bullshit on this. Key benefits, low overhead. Well, thanks. That's how you get the 52% margin. Longevity, you got to admit, it's been there for a while. 100,000 unique visitors per month. 100% of leads are inbound. I struggle with that. People say it all the time, but very few businesses truly have 100% inbound leads. And then what they do to get them inbound is non-zero. So it's kind of a misnomer. They talk about scalability, high quality team, diverse product offering. So 40 content services available for clients. I would say this is one service. It's delivering content to people. I wouldn't say 40. So I would look at that and say, blah, not really. 8 to 14 hours per week between the two owners. Somebody said 60 hours a week. Who is that?
That was me, Sean.
Yeah, Sean. You're probably right. So now I'm saying, how do you get to 52% margins and you're working 8 to 14 hours a week in a very competitive marketplace? Smells a little funny. And so on 444 something SDE, they want 1.3, so 3 times. So at least the price is a decent multiple of SDE. Financial overview, I don't spend a lot of time in financial overviews that look like this. and I'm gonna hop into the full P&L in a minute. I'm probably going to get through the rest of this in 5 minutes and then leave the last 15 for questions. So if you guys have questions, please scribble them down or put them in the chat. I want to give you opportunity to sort of ask me whatever. And if you have something in the interim, just pop in. So they go through the traffic here. They show some of the sites. If these graphics were up, they'd show a lot of stuff from Google Analytics and whatnot. And then I really don't like this brokerage firm's method of putting together their sim. But what they do is they go ask like 98 questions to the seller and put the answers in the sim. I think it's terrible, primarily just because I do want to get through the highlights of understanding the business in 5 to 10 minutes. When I have to read 98 answers that are unorganized and not sequential, it makes things tougher for me. So let me hop out of this and go to.
Ellie, I do have a question for you. This is
Yeah.
Albert Irvin. So just kind of the kind of timeline from reading the sim to an LOI, like, and I know that the goal is trying to cut that down as much as possible. Like, what is the kind of procedure of, I think sometimes I hesitate to send an LOI after reading the information because I feel like I want to get more information so that the LOI is kind of complete and not, just kind of fugazi. But is it more the thought of, hey, you read it, you got a good feel about it, and just go ahead and shoot it and then let them shoot it down? Or is it kind of really kind of get into some real kind of concrete baseline and then send an LOI once you kind of have a really good best, understanding about like getting some financials, getting a balance sheet from there?
Sure. So I think everyone on here probably has a slightly different approach to this. But here's how I always thought about it. You can't operate in a vacuum. So let's say the sim was written 3 months ago. 10 people are seriously looking at it, and you're the only one asking for more and more information. Well, the upside is they're going to know you're interested. The upside is you're less likely to put a number into the letter of intent that's drastically more than what you would really be willing to pay. That gives you some benefit of being who you are and doing what you say. But I'm going to tell you, Albert, I'm going to send a letter of intent within 48 hours of reading the sim every single time. And so I'll tell you that my LOI email is going to get organized higher than your got more questions email. The other thing that I think people forget, let's say you get some information that wasn't included in the sim. So you're like, hey, look, because I got this information, I'm going to adjust my offer appropriately. That's great, except the other 10 people didn't get that information. And so a lot of times people will get information that is like, oh, well, 3 of the top 10 employees are leaving, so I want to pay less because I know this information now. So glad that I asked for the information. But in a competitive deal, I didn't see that those 3 out of the top 10 employees were leaving. So in my 48 hours, I sent a letter of intent based solely on the information here. So there's just a balance in between asking for a lot more data and speed. So I can't answer it for you directly, but I would look at your stats and see, do you think that some of your question asking has reduced your opportunities on deals that you might have wanted to propose on, but they were under letter of intent before you could get your proposal together?
Yeah, I guess my thing is a lot of my need more information comes from a standpoint of actually getting, maybe sometimes they submit P&Ls in the sim, but more financial rights, right? So more it's like the balance sheet, more P&Ls over a longer period of time. Maybe they submitted the last trailing 12 months, and I'm looking.
Albert, I get all of that, but I already sent my letter of intent, bro.
But but to your point, you sent a letter of intent within 48 hours that was off of a trailing 12 months. I'm sending one that's a little bit more accurate in the price. Yours is a little bit more higher, though. But once you kind of get in the process, you really figure out that I made an offer for $1 million, but really it's more around 750. Do you kind of be like, well, that's just part of the game. We'll just negotiate because I got a deal locked up now?
Well, let's flip it. You're the broker. you're representing Guardian, right? I told you to go sell Guardian for the maximum price. Albert, you sent a confidential information memorandum out to all 28 people on the line right now. And 10 people were interested. 2 or 3 said, hey, I'll send you an offer today. A couple said, hey, I'm gonna have my offer in tomorrow and sent it within 48 hours. And another 3 or 4 people asked for more and more information, some of which you didn't have. How would you handle that as the broker?
Oh, I mean, my goal is, of course, to push this thing out the door. So I'm, those who sent me their stuff sooner than later, I'm gonna be, kind of attracted to them and give them kind of the heat that they want. I guess my thing is kind of from the other side of the fence, and excuse my Swahili, but it's not to be an asshole and say, hey, I'm gonna put together an LOI for 48 hours that says, $10 million, when the reality is it's more like $100,000, and no, I got to come back and
No, I get you, but I'm going to be emphatic here just because I've been doing it long enough to push. I used to do that. And what you just told me is you would have prioritized somebody's offer that came in 48 hours. So you're even as a broker, if you put your head in their seat, you would prioritize the people who are sending you something that is actionable. And then the reality is you don't get to say, hey, I'm going to have a more accurate offer, man. Just give me a week and a half. Or, hey, I'm going to have a more accurate offer, broker, if you go get some data from your client that's hard to get. So I think where people forget sometimes is sort of, it's not just you in this ecosystem. It's, you got to make sure that what you're doing makes sense for everyone. Now, if you want to take more of that conversation, let's take it offline. But I think you kind of already have a sense of what asking a lot more questions can do to your likelihood of being sort of the top person in that inbox. Question: to reduce key employee risk, what are your thoughts on getting 3-year or so non-competes signed for the key employees before closing? Sean, this is almost impossible to do. A, non-competes don't hold up in court very well for the owners. B, the reason they do work for owners is you pay them $1 million. C, most of the other employees, you didn't pay them anything, so why would they sign a non-compete? So there's ways to sort of say, hey, owner, I'm willing to give your top 3 employees a stay on bonus. I want you to let them know. Or if you get access to them directly, then you can tell them yourself. But it's hard to get non-competes on non-owners. In fact, they might not even be worth the paper you'd write them on.
Gotcha, thanks. Yeah, I like the kind of the bonus or, just having them involved. Yeah, thanks.
And guys, some of this stuff is Elliot's swag, right? I get beat up sometimes too. So Albert, I was emphatic and kind of quick only because I wanted to make sure everybody got some airplay. But it's not like I'm Jesus or even Michael Jordan. I'm pretty good. So if getting more data suits your needs, go for it. I'm just telling you that I think most brokers are going to take the offers first, and everybody gets a chance to push the price down. So maybe alternatively send a letter of intent, and if you're accepted, then before you do anything else, why not ask for some of that stuff then?
Oh no, I'm with it, and I appreciate. Once again, I appreciate the information, and I'm here to learn, right? So I'm looking at what's going on and hearing the best way to do it. I have my own kind of thoughts about it, but at the same time, it's to be more effective and efficient. And I know for me, one of my gaps is shooting that LOI, not knowing that I haven't done all of the kind of walk through it. But I get your point from a standpoint of a shoot the ball and then kind of go from there. And if it falls short, then you get a rebound and keep playing.
That's it. Omer, what you said here about putting LOIs where your assumptions are in there is smart. So I have a template LOI on my site where I have the revenue, EBITDA, working capital that I made the offer based on in the letter. So it's very clear that if those numbers aren't maintained, then my offer won't stand either. I think that's very smart. And then James mentioned that non-competes get struck out in NY. dude, you think they're bad there. Think about California. They don't hold up at all in Oklahoma. I had to learn that the hard way. So, and here's the thing: if you don't so ask your lawyers how well non-competes hold up in court. Because if they charge you an extra 2-3 grand to write them with extra strong language, even though they know a judge will likely throw it out, I think you just need to hear from whoever your lawyers are on how well non-competes are held up, or ask it on Search Funder, or ask it on Twitter, or ask, to be more specific, ask your lawyer for the last time a seller got taken to court and had to stop competing after they started, before the impact to the buyer's business was catastrophic. Meaning, did the decision even come quick enough to be helpful? I'll tell you quietly, the business that we're looking at the sim for now was an actual client who bought that business. Now, we adjusted quite a few things before they bought it, but I'll tell you that seller is still competing with that client of mine. Not because it's not contractually wrong, but because the price for my client to go assert his rights in court, times the likelihood that a judge is in favor of him, times the judgment he'll get, is so low, it's better for him to just sell some more work. And so if that's the situation you're in, and a lot of buyers are, don't rely too heavily on the non-compete. Does that make sense to you guys?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I
The
had
other
a
thing to think
question.
about. Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry to interrupt. I just had a
No.
general question about some of the statistics that you're seeing. When you're going through businesses, you're just sending out LOIs super quick. What do you generally see in terms of how many LOIs you're sending before you get something accepted?
So this information is dated. And I just want to tell you the truth about that. So the last time I was sending LOIs at that pace was probably 2 or 3 years ago. So I think the market's moving quick enough that that data may be different now. But so let me tell you a bit more how my process would work, so you won't think I'm crazy. I would try to look at 30 deals a month. To me, that's spent more than 5 minutes on looking at the information on the internet before I sent something to the broker and committed to following up. So I want to look at least 30 to 40 deals a month, of which I'd probably get 80% of the sims, so maybe 22 or so. And then I would score either directly or kind of empirically each deal. And any deal that got above sort of a, if I sent a letter of intent on this and the seller started negotiating, I'd be willing to go fly to see him. That was sort of my bar. If the deal hit that bar, then I'd send the letter of intent in 48 hours. In terms of like percentages of those, so I was sending probably 3 to 5 letters of intent a month. It would probably take, I'd likely get 3 to 5 letters of intent accepted a year. Now, when I was in diligence on a deal, I would have less time to look for new deals. So the numbers would slow down. So it's not like I was sending 3 times, so 36 LOIs a year if I was in diligence. But that's kind of how my funnel worked. Localized search is very difficult, Omer. But you have to sort of know that to do it, right? Like you wouldn't expect your numbers to be as high as mine on a national search. Does that answer the question about kind of the quick LOI strategy?
Yeah, for sure. I was just trying to get a better picture of your strategy in terms of volume you're sending out.
So here's how I'd really think about it. I thought about, and I know this to be true, I don't think you get enough data to really understand a business until post LOI. Until you have like bank statements, taxes, customer lists, and like until the broker really has or the seller has a real incentive to tell you the bad stuff about the deal, I don't think you know anything. So then, like as an undergrad engineer, I used to try like over optimize stuff. Like, let me look at this ratio, this chart, this thing, that thing. Because if it's this, I don't want it. If it's that, I don't want it. Well, I was getting beat by people who were willing to make bigger gut choices quicker. And I could feel it. So I said, look, let me stop doing IOIs altogether. I thought they were a waste. Let me send LOIs quicker. The brokers will know that they'll either get an LOI from me in 48 hours or nothing. Let me be good at telling brokers why certain deals didn't work or I didn't like them. And then if I got my LOI accepted, that didn't mean I was as far along as somebody who had spent 2 or 3 weeks before the LOI looking through information, asking for more data. All LOI meant for me was now I get a chance to look at the data I really needed to look at to see if I wanted to pursue. And so what I would do then is I would spend a couple of days looking through like a way bigger set of data. And then if the deal had something I didn't like, I would just say, hey, I saw this here that wasn't divulged earlier. This is a deal breaker for me. I'm going to rescind my letter of intent. Now, is the broker fake pissed? Yeah. But as long as you didn't have them in LOI for 2 weeks, and as long as they recognize that it was something they didn't share that you found that is moving your decision, most business people understand that they can neither tell you everything, nor should they expect you to go to the end of a transaction now that you know something that they didn't tell you. That was kind of my broader strategy. So I almost had like a post LOI, pre true due diligence segment in my process, if that makes sense. What are the primary red flags you typically look for early stages of DD before you go in deeper? Numbers that just weren't realistic. Earlier in the call, I spent a lot of time saying, hey, look, I have a sense of what profit margin most industries have. If I saw something very different than that, I would say, yeah, if I don't see some compelling reason why they can do double or 50% higher than the average margin for that industry, I don't want to spend 3 months trying to figure it out just to kill the deal then. What other things I would find out? Sometimes there are structural things that you find out. So like, hey, you get the LOI signed and now they're like, hey, the owner actually has a second partner that you're gonna have to convince to sell the business during diligence. Like, no, man, I'm out of here. Or, hey, they got some like $500,000 pending lawsuit that may last longer than your diligence period. I don't want to deal with that. So you're looking for just something that totally kills the deal. There's a couple of places on my website that have some really good information about this, and I'm gonna pop them into the chat. First off, I think you should like download the war stories and spend some time on my war stories page, because I talk through a lot of red flags. In fact, so much I'm actually going to rebrand the war stories as red flags. That's really what they are. So I would take a look there. And then I actually have a post LOI webpage also. And
Elliot, I like that you name it War Stories. I think keep that. It's sweet.
Think so?
I like
Okay.
it. But that's my 2 cents.
Hey man, I take all 2 cents, man, because they add up.
It stands out from all the other blogs that you get.
That's fair. That's good information. Because I was sort of losing some of the pizzazz on that. So thank you. I'm going to show you guys this before I head out. So on my, well, first off, I was just on my, this is my war stories page. So you can actually legit go through and I have a white paper. There was a search funder live stream I did with over 100 people. You can watch the video, and I've got 9 long form war stories. And if you jump on my newsletter, you'll get typically a war story a month, if not more. And then I also have my post LOI success guys page, which the name of it, whatever, but there's an article, 5 steps to take once you get a signed LOI, which kind of walks you through kind of my post LOI, but before I dug in too deep process. 3 things to do before hiring a QOE firm, how to manage a go, no-go deal process post LOI, and then an article about who we work with and who we don't. So hopefully these resources are helpful. Michael, send me a note and I'll answer that. It's a little bit, it depends. But thank you everyone for joining. I enjoyed this. I had a good time. I'll let you guys know the next time I do one. And yeah, have a kick-ass weekend, and I'll see you guys around.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
Elliot.
All right.
Thanks, Elliot.
Thanks, Elliot. This was great.
Thank you.